Welcome everyone to our second Wandsworth Coronavirus Business Forum. Our aim is to bring together senior officials from Wandsworth Council and other experts to make sure you get critical business support information to help get your business through this pandemic. Today we will have an update from the Council on their response to the COVID crisis and from Enterprise Nation with advice for sole traders and the self-employed amongst us. We'll also have a Q&A session, and our panel will include our speakers and Zaid from Lanark. Just to let you know who our meeting helpers are, we have Beverly Corson from Engineering Business Growth. Beverly, just say hello.
Hello everyone, welcome.
Lovely. And Francine Bailey, founder and digital strategist of Nucleus for Change. Francine.
Hello everybody.
Lovely. Francine is going to be running a how to stay top of your mind with your customers event, and more details on the website later. So a little bit about what we're doing at Wandsworth Chamber. And firstly, I'd ask you to please remember that Wandsworth Chamber is also a small not-for-profit business ourselves, so we're experiencing exactly the same pain and uncertainty that most people are. We are working in partnership with Wandsworth Council, our members and other agencies to provide as much support and clarity around current trading conditions as we are able with the resources that we have. And you may be surprised to know, but we're one of the first chambers to bring these types of online events together with our council. And full credit to Wandsworth Council for being willing to face the public in this new type of open forum. Many councils around the country have shied away from this opportunity for fear of rebuke and criticism, but this is a time to lead and, more importantly, listen. And from your feedback at the last event, this response has been very welcome from your council. Through our partnership, we have helped many local businesses already to get the answers they were seeking, and we will continue to do this for as long as we can. Our schedule of online events is increasing, and we have plans for a regular Business Resilience weekly webinar at 10 AM on a Tuesday, with business experts covering topics such as finance, HR, marketing, and of course, COVID support. We will also be hosting a number of member-related workshops and seminars to share knowledge and skills, and a regular happy hour at 5 PM on a Friday called Chamber Unwind. And this is a chance to raise a glass and relax with your friends and business. It won't be happening this Friday because it's a bank holiday, and I think we all need a rest at times. Can I ask you to please complete the Wandsworth Coronavirus Business Survey posted on our website? This will give us valuable information on the help you need and help to gauge the resilience of businesses in our borough. And lastly, for me, if you're not a member of Wandsworth Chamber, please consider joining. We have reduced fees by 50% to make this a relatively small cost, but it will allow us to continue to work with our partners and continue to communicate with you through this crisis. So that's enough from me. So now to our meeting. Firstly, may I introduce to you Councillor Jonathan Cook. Jonathan is the Deputy Leader of Wandsworth Council and Cabinet Member for Economic Development and Skills and Employment. Jonathan, over to you.
Well, thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Can I start by thanking you for arranging this meeting? It's enormously valuable and really welcome the opportunity. As I'll come on to in a sec, we learn an awful lot from it. It's all about understanding the challenges that people are facing right now. Can I maybe start by just spending a couple of minutes just giving a very quick overview of what the council's doing and reacting in a general sense, and then I'll move on to the business specifics, which is obviously what this meeting's primarily about. I mean, obviously completely unprecedented. It's turned everything on its head. The things we were worrying about a month ago seemed like a million years ago. Our primary focus as a council is the welfare of our residents, and in particular those who are most vulnerable. So we've set up a community hub which is staffed by 40 members of the council, of the council staff, to take calls, emails, anything that might be concerning people. And we're particularly worried there about anyone who might be in the 1.5 million particularly vulnerable residents in the UK, and we now know the Wandsworth cohort of that 1.5 million. So we're going through those individually, line by line, making contact with them, making sure that they've got everything they might need. And any resident who's concerned about anything, they can call us, and all the numbers are on the website. And that's now taken approaching 5,000 calls, so we know that's working. Right across the whole sort of scope of council services, everything's changed really. Children's services, the schools, of course, are all closed. We've been very focused there on helping children who are in receipt of free school meals. We put in place a system that ensures that they will continue to get that support. That seems to be working well. Adult care is obviously a big overlap with what I was just talking about, big concern there. We're turning our mind, given that we don't know how long this is going to go on for, to maintaining the democratic decision-making process and how one does that virtually, because of course council meetings have always tended to be in person. They have to be legally. So we're sort of working hard on that. The police, obviously, crucial partners. Interestingly, crime in many ways is down. All acquisitive crime has gone off a cliff, so it's a rough time to be a burglar because everyone's at home. But other things are of concern. There is concern about the potential for increased domestic violence, so a lot of work going on there. Police numbers are down, but they're coping very well at the moment, so that is good news, reassuring. So right across the council, just huge efforts going on to make sure that as a borough we cope as well as we possibly can. So moving on to business, as we touched on last week's meeting, we see it as our role to be as supportive as we possibly can be to businesses which we understand are just facing the most horrendous challenge. And it seemed to us that we need to be as quick as we possibly could be. So we got the letters out to just over 4,000 businesses immediately that we could, Monday and Tuesday of the week before last, I think it was. And that was to do with the business rate support schemes. We've now had well over 60% of those back, and as of last night when I checked, I know Mr. Russell's on the call, might be able to update us further. We've sent out over £21 million to local businesses. There are also loan schemes. There are all sorts of the furlough schemes, all sorts of schemes announced by central government. And we see it as our role to either disperse funds as quickly as we can, if that's what the local authority role is, or it's to make sure that everyone has as much information as they possibly can have about eligibility. We're particularly concerned about the self-employed in the borough. We've probably got more self-employed people in Wandsworth than any other London borough. It's about 36,000, so it's a really big cohort. So we've been looking very hard at that, and of course we're in touch with central government. So one role that we feel we have is to understand specific situations where there are gaps. So why this sort of meeting is incredibly useful, because it helps us to understand the sort of the specifics of situations and things that aren't working, and we can feed that back to central government and say, hey, we think we've got a problem here, we need to do something about this. So we're very active with that. All sorts of specifics will come out during this meeting, and I just can't emphasize enough, Steve, how useful we find that, and want to thank you very much for organising the meeting. So I'm all ears. I know we've got a number of the officers from my team on the call, so hopefully we'll be able to deal with anything that comes up. I regard this as an incredibly useful learning experience for us at the council, but also hopefully something will be useful in terms of sharing information for anyone who's wondering what to do next. Final thought is we will come out of this. We don't quite know when, but we're turning our thinking now to how can we best position ourselves to support businesses for that moment, and make sure that vibrant Wandsworth business community, which we're so proud of, I mean, it's a real distinctive feature of the borough, comes out of things as strongly as it possibly can do. So I think I'll leave it there for now, if I may, and thanks very much, Steve.
That's great, Jonathan. Thank you very much for sharing that. I guess it puts into perspective really that the number one priority for everyone is the health of our people, business then comes after that. And you can imagine the amount of work involved all around the world, really, to get everyone fit and healthy and everything back to normal. The recovery process obviously is extremely important, and we're really glad to be part of that. And there'll be a lot more of how businesses and our partners, how we can help each other to get through that. So now we'd normally go to Graham Russell for an update on the specifics, but because Emma Jones from Enterprise Nation has to leave early, she's very kindly offered to appear and share some information on how the self-employed and sole traders can get support. So Emma, over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning. Thanks so much for inviting me on. So as Steve mentioned, I run a business called Enterprise Nation. We help people start and grow their own small business. And so just in terms of our response to coronavirus, probably about 4 weeks ago, we built a coronavirus support hub on our website. And what we've been doing in the past few weeks is two things mainly. The first is responding to urgent questions that small businesses have had around eligibility for government support programs. And as Steve mentioned, I'll particularly outline the self-employment one this morning. But the second thing is hopefully helping our businesses, those who can, help them proactively trade through the next couple of months. And so Steve mentioned that I have to bob off this morning. It's because every day we do a lunch and learn webinar, which yesterday was about PR, the day before was about sales. Tomorrow we have the Small Business Minister coming on. So do have a look at that, because it's a great way to pose your questions. And picking up on those comments of small business support, we are talking to the business department at the moment about bringing out a potential support programme for small businesses that haven't been covered by the cash schemes that government have distributed. So do join us tomorrow and contribute your comments to that. So as I say, we've been doing two things: responding to those urgent questions, but also hopefully helping businesses, those businesses that can, trade through this very difficult time. So briefly on particularly the self-employment programme, the Chancellor announced this 2 weeks ago on Friday, a self-employment support programme, to really briefly cover the eligibility criteria with you, because it's coming out that there's a few self-employed who don't meet the criteria. But the key eligibility criteria to apply for the scheme is that the majority of your income should come from self-employment. So over 51% of your income should be from self-employment. You should have filed a 2018-19 tax return. So this is causing a little bit of consternation, because what that means is those who have been self-employed for less than 12 months are sadly currently not eligible for this self-employment support scheme. We are talking to government to see if they would consider filing of 1920 self-assessment returns, because the opening date for those returns is the 6th of April. So in theory, businesses could file their 1920 self-assessment returns now and could still get the grant based on it. But at the moment, it's only eligible to those who filed an 1819 return. Another key criteria is that your operating profits cannot be over £50,000. So if your trading profits are more than £50,000, you will not be eligible for the self-employment scheme. And just to give you an idea of how much it is, so what the government is currently saying is, if you're self-employed and you feel you do meet the eligibility criteria, government is saying you don't need to contact them, that HMRC will contact you in June. However, that was said around the small business cash grants, and I know councils have done an amazing job of actually reaching out to businesses, but we think it's going to be two ways. So you alerting HMRC, but HMRC will also contact you in June. And just in terms of the amount, I should say it is a taxable grant. So when this money gets put into your bank account in June, and it should be put 3 months worth of instalments will be put into your account in June, but it is a taxable grant. And the way in which HMRC is calculating it is essentially it's worth 80% of your profits So that's the one indicator that they're using. So 80% of profits up to a cap of 2,500 per month. And as I say, that's over 3 months, backdated to the 1st of March. So for those who are eligible, do consider that. And as I say, HMRC should contact you, but do keep alert to the Chamber, to the Council, so we can keep you updated with news. But I just wanted to mention a couple of non-government sort of cash schemes. I know there's been a lot of focus on what the government is doing to help small businesses when it comes to access to finance, but we've seen a couple of other things this week that might be relevant for you. So forgive me, I don't know the age of everyone who's tuned in today, but if you're aged 18 to 30, the Prince's Trust and NatWest have just opened a £5 million fund where you can apply for a tax-free grant, actually, so it's not taxable, but they're making £5 million available to entrepreneurs who are aged 18 to 30, so do have a look at that. We have partnered with a platform called Crowdfunder with an initiative called Pay It Forward, whereby you can ask customers now to prepay for future services. So on Crowdfunder, we've already raised over £1 million from customers who are prepaying for future products and services. So that's essentially a way of getting cash from your customers, but delivering the services to them when the time is right. And then just finally, you may have seen that Facebook has announced £100 million worth or dollars worth of cash grants that are coming out to small businesses as well. So there's a post on this on our Coronavirus Support Hub page. And all I wanted to say connected to that is the government have extended very large financial schemes for the self-employed, for small businesses. But if you are sadly not eligible for those, there are other sources of funding that are coming through that might be worth looking at. So Steve, hopefully that was a little bit helpful in terms of an update this morning.
Thank you very much, Emma. That was great. We haven't formally met, so I think this is the first time, so it'd be lovely to have a catch-up call with you later on and just see how we can work together more. But that was really interesting, and thank you very much for taking the time. So now can I pass you over to Graham Russell. Graham's the Assistant Director of Resources at Wandsworth Council, and he featured on our last forum, and Graham's going to give you an update on the details of how the council support is going. Graham, over to you. Graham.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning, everybody. What I'm proposing to do today is just briefly run through again the support that is available via the council, and then a quick update on the money that's gone out so far. And there's been a couple of questions I've noticed on the chat, and I'll try and address those towards the end. So the first help that is available is known as extended retail relief. Many businesses will have been in receipt of retail relief previously. That's now been expanded to hospitality, leisure, estate agents, letting agents, and certain gambling establishments. And all of those types of businesses will pay no business rates in 2021, irrespective of the rateable value of the property. And there's no need for businesses to do anything on that. You'll be rebilled with a zero bill in due course if you're eligible. On the grants, there are two schemes for grants. The first one is the small business grant, and any business that's in receipt of small business rate relief is eligible for a grant of £10,000. Councillor Cook referred earlier to the online application form, and I'll post the address for that on the chat shortly. Go in there, put your details in, and then we'll process that grant for you. I should say there are some websites appearing which are offering to do that for you for £99, which is not necessary. It's a waste of £99, and don't do it. The second grant is known as Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Grants. And if your business has a rateable value of less than £15,000, you're eligible for a £10,000 grant. If your business has a rateable value between £15,000 and £50,000, you're eligible for a £25,000 grant. And again, you apply for those online. And when you go online, there are 3 separate forms for each of those categories and some instructions So hopefully you can apply for the correct grant. I have to say, don't worry if you don't apply for the correct grant, because we're checking them all anyway, just to make sure that people have done that properly. Okay, so progress to date. The rebilling of those who are eligible for the extended rate relief, we're awaiting a software update from our supplier. So we haven't been able to rebill as yet. We expect to be doing that fairly shortly, but the business rates team do assure me that no direct debits will be taken from businesses where they will subsequently be issued with a zero bill. So that should mean that there's no effect on the businesses and nothing for the businesses to do. On the grants themselves, I'll just repeat the figures Councillor Cook gave. We've received 2,692 claims for grants so far, which is 64% of the businesses that we think are eligible within the borough. And we've paid out just over £22 million. Now, there was a question posted asking for a bit more information about that. I'm not quite sure what information I can give you. I mean, as we get the applications, we're processing them. We undertake a few cursory audit checks to make sure that there are no fraudulent claims, such as making sure that the bank details actually exist and so on, checking some VAT numbers. All the payments go out via the back system, so there's a 3-day delay built in those. Those grants will be going out on a daily basis through the back system and arriving 3 to 4 days later in your bank accounts. The other question I noticed was about someone who pays a combined rent and rates bill to their landlord, and they don't have a business rates bill for themselves. Unfortunately, the government regulation is that these grants are payable only to the liable party for the business rates. So if you don't have a business rates account, we can't pay you a grant. So that's the problem that lots of people in serviced offices are facing. And the only advice we've given is to lobby your MP to see if they can change the scheme to include those. And that's it from me for the time being. Happy to take questions, obviously.
All right. Thank you very much, Graham. That was really useful. On the applications that you mentioned, is there any specific question that's maybe confusing for people where they're not giving the right information? Is there any way that they can get more information to help improve their application process?
Well, not really. It's fairly straightforward. We originally on the letters, we asked for the bank account details and the business name and address. The government then decided that they wanted us to collect VAT numbers and company's house registrations, which obviously don't apply to everybody, but we put those on the online form. So it should be fairly straightforward information that we're requiring. We're not seeing a lot of problems in that way. I mean, what I would say is if you could just be really careful inputting your business rates account number and your bank account numbers. We've had a couple of people who've made mistakes with those, just added an extra digit or dropped a digit off or something. And obviously we then have to go back and chase and find the correct information.
All right, that's lovely. So thank you very much to our speakers. I think we'll move on to the question and answer session. And I'm going to ask Beverly to pick out some of the questions that have been coming up in the chat. Firstly, I see Mark Justin, you've had your hand raised. Mark, can I ask you to come online and ask your question?
Hello there. First of all, to say thank you that I've received the business grant, and I'm amazed at the speediness of it. So thank you to all involved.
Unfortunately, we've had to edit the video because we got Zoom bombed by some irresponsible social media geeks, and there was some unsavory content put on there. So we took the decision to end that business forum. For the next one, I assure you, we will be having a pre-registration process, and please do not share the password for the meeting, and hopefully we can continue. Our wash-up meeting with Wandsworth Council They felt exactly the same, that this is a great forum to understand business perspectives. They like it, and they won't be put off by a few irresponsible youths. So rest assured, we will do everything that we can and resume service as normal by next Wednesday.